Hi, this is Greg with Threshold Productions, and this is a tutorial on understanding the pen tool. My method for this tutorial is going to be in a way for people, beginner or experts, to be able to use the pen tool really without having to use the tool panel over here on the left. I find it kind of tedious having to go back and forth to switch tools, so this tutorial will kind of help you have a workflow of not really needing to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, I would like to say that I'm going to try to be as brief as possible and get to the point, but I do believe there are some preliminary information for new people that they need to understand to grasp the concept of the pen tool. So let's go ahead and get started. Right now I'm working on a Mac-based computer. So on the bottom I've put together a little diagram showing the key shortcuts that I'm going to be using for the keyboard for the Windows side. I've color-coded this so that whenever you hear me refer to the command or option, it's going to be Alt or Control for Windows. Shift and the keyboards are going to be the same as usual. So yeah, so with that out of the way, what is a path? A path, by my definition, is a line connecting two anchor points. So I guess your next question would be, what are anchor points? Anchor points are what I would describe as points directing a path in a certain direction. So an example, we've all seen this before. Here's this little diagram here. As kids, we've always had these in school where you're drawing a path, which would be this line between anchor points connecting the dots. That's pretty much what an anchor point is. Okay. Next would be a Bezier curve. Bezier curves are pretty much the same as a path, except they're curved. I'll show you an example in the next slide. The next would be, what is the difference between a work path layer and other path layers? Pretty much what that is in your paths panel here. If you don't see this, all you need to do is go to View. Window, and then click on Paths. Okay. What a work path is versus a regular path layer. For example, this and this. What it is a work path layer is pretty much a layer that you're not really concerned about. Like if you're using paths from the pen tool for like a quick selection that you're not really worried about saving, that's what you would use a work path for. Now the difference between this and this is if I wanted to save a path, now of course work paths are saved I believe whenever you save your document, but they're easily written over. But if you wanted to save a path, you would just double click it and then it'll ask you if you would like to save it. For example, I'll double click this and you'll see save path. You can give it a name and press OK, and then that will show up here with your desired name for that path. Now with that said, I'm going to go back to my layers. Here are some quick tips for working with paths. The pen tool. Here you see where I put Photoshop preferences for multiple undos. Of course, with Photoshop you can undo a step by hitting Command or Control Z. But if you want to do multiple step backs, instead of having to go to your history panel, which is here, you can actually hold down Option, Command, or Control and Alt Z, which you'll have multiple undos. But typically in Photoshop, if you go to Photoshop Preferences, General, and then you go down to where it says Performance. There's a history state section here. Which for that multiple undo states, you can do 20 or whatever you specify. I would normally specify it between 20 and 50. The more you have, the more memory hogs up. So 20 should be fine for now. Let's see, best screen mode to use for the pen tool, especially dealing with Bezier curves. You might be pulling out handles, and it might be kind of hard for you when your screen isn't really moving along with you the way that you want. So for example, my screen mode is set to full screen mode with menu bars. If you have it on standard mode, whenever you try to hold down your space bar to pan, you're not really panning all that much. You're really only panning to what your screen is. So say if my screen is full here and I hold down and I'm panning, it's not moving along with it. If you go to View and change that to full screen mode with menu bar, when you pan, you're able to move your entire document, which makes it easier for when you're using the Bezier control points. Next would be keyboard shortcuts to optimize your workflow. I'll describe it once we get started with the drawing with the pen tool to give you a better idea on how to do things. Next would be the pen tool selection tip. For this, when you select the pen tool, which is P, which this is why it's green, up top you see where it says Auto, Add, and Delete. Usually this is checked on by default, but if it's not, go ahead and check that on. It'll help out with your workflow when you're wanting to add and delete anchor points. Okay, so next, here are understanding paths. These are this is a little diagram to better understand what you're going to be seeing on your screen. An anchor point looks like this. A selected anchor point looks like this, and an isolated anchor point looks like this. What this is pretty much is I have my my pen tool selected, which is P, as you can see, and when I make a first point on the computer, actually, I'm going to create a new path, because if I create this now, you see how my work path is deleted. I'm going to undo that and actually make a new path. When I click here, you see a point where it says select anchor point, because this is the anchor point that I'm dealing with right now. When I add another point, you'll see that that path has changed into an anchor point, which isn't selected. An isolated anchor point is an anchor point that is on its own. So if I created a new point here and then I deselect the anchor point, you see it's now next. So if I wanted to continue on with that point, I can at a later time, and I'll explain that a little later. A path is just like you see here, a line connecting two anchor points. This is your path. Okay. A Bezier curve is a path that you start, and when you click to add a second point and you're holding down your mouse and you drag, it creates a Bezier curve. And the Bezier curve has two control points on opposite sides that control this curve. And I'll get a little bit into that once we get started with the tutorial. Okay, so I'll go ahead and delete this this path there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. These are the icons that you're going to familiarize yourself with once you start drawing with the pen tool. You have this tool here. With the program that I'm using right now, you might not be able to see the same icon as this one is. It might just be a regular arrow, but this is what I'm seeing on my screen right now. What that is create a new path. What you do is just single click on a document to start a path, and this icon is to complete a path, which is when you have a path that's two or more. When you go back to the first path that you clicked on, you'll see it change to a complete path icon. That's what that is. Now earlier, when you saw me click on off the path and back on the path, you see this little icon here, which is path continuation. If you have a path that's broken, or that path that you started and then you went off and did something else, say you went over here and started a new path, if you want to go back to that path, you can click on it and continue on. Next would be the add anchor point, which is if you hover over the a path, you can see that you can add an anchor point, which is why you have this up here selected, auto and add and delete. If I hover over an existing one, you see it changes to a delete. If you hover over an area where you can add an anchor point, it'll automatically do that for you. Next would be the convert anchor point. What that is pretty much is if you have a series of curved anchor points, for example here, if you hold down your command key, for the direct selection tool, you see your various anchor points here. And as the path is in a circle, if you hold down your Option key and hover over an individual anchor point, it'll change them from a Bezier anchor into a single straight line anchor point. And also you can convert those back by also holding down the same key, which is Alt Option, and you can click and drag to convert it back into a Bezier curve. Okay. And you notice that I'm following the original direction that I drew this in. If I were to go the opposite way, you'll see it kind of draw out in a different way. So just be sure the way that you originally, the direction that you've drawn it. Next would be the explanation of the direct selection tool and the path selection tool. If you go to your tool palette and you go to your selection tools, you'll see you have a black one and a white one. And you see in the tutorial that my black one is grayed out. The reason why I did that was because that the difference between the two is path selection. If you have a path and you were to use the black path selection tool, when you click on the path, all this tool does is move your path. It doesn't modify any of the points or anything. This is strictly to move your path around. If you were to select the direct selection tool, you can actually click individual paths and modify them. And as I said before, here, that when it's black like this, it's a selected anchor point. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. So that's the difference between the two. And the reason why this is grayed out is because you can actually use your Command or Control key to switch between the two. If you wanted to move the entire path using only, go to our pen tool with P as a shortcut. If you wanted to move the entire path using only the tools available without using the toolbar, just hold down the Command key to change it to the white direct selection tool and drag over your entire path and move it. It's as simple as that. So we have this bird that we're going to trace around. So what I'll do is I'll hold on Z or press Z, and you might have scrubby zoom, which if you do, when it's selected, you just click and drag. What I like is just selecting that off and click and drag to zoom in using the space bar. I'll pan. So with our pen tool selected with P, let's go ahead and start our path. So we'll click, and then right here you got to be wary of curves because they work in a weird way. So what you want to do is you want to click right before your curved area and then drag if there's a curve for your Bezier curve. Okay. Now your Bezier curve control points, depending on the direction that it's going, it's kind of like a, hey, this is a heads up, this is the direction that your next path that you're drawing is going to go. So for example, if I click up here, you see how it followed that control point down as a curve to go up to the next point. If you hold down your Option key and hover over the control point, you see the icon has changed into that little caret. What this does is if you hold down your Command only and you modify this control point, you're going to be holding, you're going to be controlling both handles at the same time, which might be fine in some instances, but in this case, this isn't what I want. So what I would do is hold down the Option or Alt key, you see the caret, and when you click and drag, it only changes this single control point. Okay, the closer the control point is to the anchor, the less intense the curve is going to be. So if I move it there and draw my next curve here, and then if I zoom in, you see how more precise that is. Okay. So next, I'm drawing upwards. This is my next curve. Drag out, and while my mouse key is still down, I'm gonna hold down the Option or Alt, and make this control point go the direction that I want. Next, this curve here should be fine. The reason why I say that is, okay, now whenever I click, see how I'm running out of space? If I hold down my space bar and pan, I can move this around. It'll be a little easier. Now I'm going to hold down my Command key, use my direct path selection tool, and I'm going to take this control point, move it upwards to trace that along the way. Next, this control point is way too long and it's going in the wrong direction. I want to take it back this way. So what I will do is hold down my Alt or Option key, hover over this Bezier control point, click, and move this along going in this direction. Okay, and all of this is trial and error, so the more practice, the better. Next, what I want to do is going curve down a little bit and then going back up. I know that I don't want to just click here and drag it upwards. Okay. For this instance, I'm going to show you a way in order to do this. If you hold down your Control key, you can actually take this anchor point and move it in a different location. Okay. A lot of people like to undo and all this and all that, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can just modify the anchor points that you've already placed. So like I said, if I hold down my Command key to switch that to the direct selection tool, I can take this point and move it to an area where I want. Then I can take the same Command key and I can click this control point here. Okay, and then I can take this one and move this a little closer. Next, continue on with this next path, dragging it out to follow that curve a little better. And if you want to preview what your curve looks like without the control points from the Bezier curves, just hold down your Command key and click off the path. Okay, it gives you a better preview. Hold down the space bar, gives you a better preview of what this looks like. Okay, so if you do that, you want to continue on with your path. Next, you'll just hover over the end point here and click. Okay. Next, to go on the circle, typically I'm holding my Option key and move this in just a little bit. Actually, follow this way. Typically, a lot of people they make the mistake of, when dealing with circles, they think that, oh, well, here's this point. Now, obviously, I just want to go around, so they'll click here, and then they'll try to make this work. When it comes to circles, it's not really ideal to try to do a complete circle with two paths. So I did this so I can show you another way of modifying this instead of undoing this. If you try this and it doesn't work out for you, what you can do is, since you have this auto add and delete anchor point checkbox selected, you can add anchor points. So say we'll add one here. Okay, so if you hold down Command, you can take that anchor point and move it here, and then we'll say we'll add one here. Take that, holding down Command, move that here, and then we can modify the Bezier curves with those anchor points. And all I'm doing a lot really is holding down the Command key, which saves a lot of time, especially trying to fix things. So I'm not going to try to be too precise with this. Next, with this anchor point selected, I'm going to hold down the Option key until this caret, oh, actually I'm sorry, it's the wrong caret, I apologize. Take this caret, this anchor point for the Bezier curve, and I'm going to go this way with it. Okay. Next, while this is still held down, I can hold down the Option key and tell it to go this way. Okay. And here's a simple, I'm not sure if you see it, but I'm just zoom out real quick. Since this is one whole completed path, this is going to be the next symbol that you're going to see when I go to this last anchor point. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in. And pull the drag out. There you go. And if it's completed and it didn't do what you wanted to do, again, you can press down the Command key, select the path, and then to get more control, you can hold down the Alt or Option key and pull that point out and modify it. And there's that path. When we started that path, we didn't create a new layer or anything like that. It was just the path that we've just started from the tool. And what that did was it created a work path. And like I said earlier, is if you don't have that in mind and you create this work path and start working on it, it may change on you. So if, like I say, you click off of it, you know, because it was in your way or whatever, whatnot, and you start another path, that path you just did, just delete it, and that's not what you want. So what you would do if that happens, just undo and multiple undos, because undoing what I just did just erase the curve or whatever. Now you want to multiple undo, so you just hold down Alt, Option, and Command or Control Z, and then you'll double click the work path to save it. We'll say this is bird head, and hit OK. So now when you click off of it and say you want to work in a different area, your selection is still saved. Okay, so we'll go ahead and delete that one. Zoom back out here. If ever there's a point in time where you would like to delete a specific area of your path tool, with your path tool, pen tool selected, if you hold down Command and click on the path that you want, just single click on it. If you hit delete, you'll be able to delete that portion of your path. To keep deleting, you can either hold down Command and select the specific path or anchor point and delete it that way, or you can just single click with the Command pressed on the path itself and press delete. To bring it back, of course, just hover over the anchor point, click on it, and then continue to redraw. Okay, so that concludes this tutorial. I will have this file for download for those of you who wants to try this out. I've actually created a section here for you called "Give It a Try," for you to come in here and try to trace this bird, which this is was made by the people at keepdesigning.com. This is where I got this this bird as an example. You can go there, check their stuff out. It's pretty cool stuff. But here's the file here for you to trace out yourself. So give it a try. Leave some comments if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thanks, guys.